Okay, welcome to Firefighting Today. This is the weekly roundtable show where we talk about all things firefighting. We meet each Sunday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Tonight we're going to talk about some myths, some cliches that firefighters use, some propaganda, maybe myths, truths. I don't know. We're going to take a look at some of the phrases and things that firefighters say all the time around the firehouse, and we've got enough experience on this panel. We might be able to debunk some of those myths. I'm not exactly sure, and maybe have a good time while we're doing it. If you are watching us live on YouTube, feel free to leave a YouTube comment, interact with the panel. You can leave a comment on the events page, and if you happen to be live tweeting tonight, you can use the hashtag FFT for firefighter training. And FFT Myths is what we're calling ourselves tonight. So we're not myths exactly, but what we're talking about is. So let's get started. So my name is Peter Lamb. I'm the author of PeteLamb.com, and I'm the host of the Firefighter Training Podcast, and sometimes even the ringmaster of the show here tonight. So welcome, and I appreciate everybody being here. Let's introduce the panel for you. Charlie.
Hi everyone, my name's Charlie Hall. I'm the Deputy Fire Chief at TF Green Airport here in Providence, Rhode Island.
Great, thanks Charlie. Ethan.
Hi Pete, Ethan Bansa, Clarion, Ohio, student of the trade.
Good to have you here, Ethan, as always. Chief Murphy, say hello, tell the folks about yourself.
Good evening, Chief. Jim Murphy, Fire Chief, North Little Rock, Arkansas.
Great to have you here, Jim. And Joe Starnes, let's check your audio, Joe.
Joe Starnes, Grove Volunteer Fire Department, Kings Mountain North Manager for Project Kill the Flash Holes.
All right, we got most of that. Thanks, Joe. Kevin, say hello.
I'm Kevin Burns. I'm a Deputy Fire Chief with Framingham Fire Department, just outside of Boston.
Thanks. And last but certainly not least, Rob.
Good evening, everybody. Rob Fling, First Assistant Chief, Dix Hills Fire Department, contributor for firefightertoolbox.com, and also founder of Face Peace On.
All right, and we'll hear a little more about Face Peace On a little bit later on as we go. So here's what we're talking about tonight, and hopefully we'll take this with a little tongue-in-cheek. Sometimes there'll be a serious portion of it, but they're a little bit tongue-in-cheek. And I begin to think, and I got hit last week for some reason with a series of stuff on social media, and sometimes there are certain things that just make me crazy. But maybe it's just me. Maybe it doesn't affect everybody the same way. So one of them was a sticker. Somebody had made this sticker, and this has been around for a long, long time, and it is the T-shirt or the sticker, and it says, "I fight what you fear." So that's kind of one of these cliches and one of these bravados in the fire service. I fight what you fear. So I don't know, how does that affect you? Anybody on the panel, how does that, when you see somebody wearing that T-shirt and you're an experienced firefighter, been in the business a little bit, what does that reflect to you? Anybody want to take a stab at that?
I've seen it not only on the T-shirts, not only on the stickers, but I've seen it, they put the 4-inch letters across the top of the windshield.
Oh, yeah, right, across the, yeah, we'll talk about that too, the apparatus, what's on the apparatus as well. I don't know personally why anyone would want to fight my wife. Because if you're talking about you fight what I fear, then I would think that would be a natural type, or clown. So I don't know, one or the other. But what are we doing when we say that with the T-shirt? Are we trying to say that is it an affront to the civilian, or is it a promotion for the fire department? Are we insulting the civilian, or are we telling the civilian that we're braver than them? What does that really mean when we say that? Anybody?
Well, Chief, I think it's more an insult to the individual. I think it's when ego crosses that line, it shouldn't cross.
Yeah, I was going to say, Jim, so you're looking at it similar to I do. The person that I see wearing that T-shirt, he certainly isn't trying to impress another firefighter, I don't think. Is that right?
Oh, I would hope not.
Right, right. I think
I was always told that fear is a good thing,
yeah,
especially doing what we do, because it supports that level of respect that we should have for fire.
no argument there at all. No argument there at all. How about so that's that's kind of one I threw out there to start a discussion. The other one is this one. So you're at the kitchen table in the firehouse, and you've heard this 15 times at the kitchen table in the firehouse, and somebody says, I'll tell you what, if any firefighter ever leaves me in a burning building, I'm going to beat him up when I get out, or hit him with an axe, or chase him down, or whatever that kind of story is. So it's somebody at the kitchen table saying, if anybody ever leaves me in a building, I'm going to do X, Y, Z. Anybody heard that? How do you react to that as an experienced professional? What do you say to that statement that's going on, or have you even said that statement? Maybe.
Never said it.
No.
I've heard it.
You have heard it.
Yeah, people talk about that every once in a while. You might hear somebody say, maybe you were at a fire or in a drill or something, so-and-so left me. But did they really leave you, or did they just go and do something else? Were you searching the right bedroom and they were searching the left bedroom? Did they really leave you? Did you go and find them out at the street? No, I doubt that happened.
Right. And let me ask you this. If your partner, by some strange chance, is terrified, go ahead and leave, because you're not going to do me a lot of good if you're sitting here in that position and you're in that bad a condition, right? You're certainly not going to do anything for me when you're in that condition. Why do you think firefighters would say this, or what are we? By that statement, am I saying that I'm tougher than the next guy? Is it part of the bravado, or what brings us to make that statement?
Yeah, Pete, I would say I've heard that statement. Someone speaking about themselves that, well, I have the reputation that I'll never leave anybody in the building, and self-confidence is a good thing. It's a necessary thing in our business. But you touched on it a while back. Humility is something I think we all need to practice, because we could have 5 good fires in a row, and then the 6th one, let's say in my case, standing out front, I can burn it down. So I think humility is always good to keep in the back of your mind. How much of this is out of our control? Staying humble, I think, is a big key.
No, I couldn't agree more, Kevin. I think you're exactly right. And some of this is, some of it is said tongue in cheek, but I have heard folks say it, and it brings somewhat of a negative connotation to me in some cases. What have you seen on the sides of fire trucks, or something that was good or bad? We're talking about a couple of ones that don't really throw me, but are there any good ones or anything that you've seen? Ethan, have you seen anything? You seen anything on the sides of apparatus that's clever, or it's a cliche, or something that we use?
Well, certainly, and again, Pete, this comes down to maybe a pride thing for that department or that station with that truck. I mean, one I've seen on the back of medics, down with sickness, plain and simple. But and again, that comes down. It's a pride thing that department or that station has.
Right. And I'm all about that. I think the station pride, the individual station pride, I think is very, very important. There's no question about that. But I think that sometimes we get caught up, not we on the panel, but firefighters in general get caught up. How about this one? Have you ever heard a bunch of firefighters sitting around talking? And so, they're talking to a civilian, or there's a group that comes into the station, or they're out there talking to the seniors or something. And somebody spouts off with the claim that, you civilians need to understand that fire doubles every minute. You ever heard anybody say fire doubles every minute? And let me just ask the question. Is that true, or is that something that we've kind of stretched a little bit, or is it something that we're saying, half true? Well, I'm sure you've heard this statement. It's generally said by firefighters talking to civilians. What should that statement actually be? Anybody?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Rob.
Might have heard it in like some fire prevention stuff like that, but it's really an ambiguous statement, really. I mean, it depends on, I'm sure Chief Starnes can talk about this till, to no end. It depends, is what kind of oxygen source does the fire have? Is it have enough fuel? We could debate as firemen and having an understanding of fire behavior. We could probably talk about this for an hour. But, as a civilian, they just need to know that, if they have a fire, does it really double in size every minute? Well, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But you know what? What they should know is, if you happen to see the fire start and you can maybe hit it with an extinguisher, okay, fine. If not, get out and call 911. What else do they really need to know?
Yeah, no, I don't disagree, Rob, but I guess what I would say is, isn't it a responsibility of us as professionals to kind of say it the right way, right? What we're really trying to say is fire growth is exponential. Fire growth is exponential. It is not per minute. It is whatever time frame we're talking about. Is it certainly the if it took 3 minutes to get to this size, it will grow exponentially based upon the same amount of oxygen, whatever. What we're really trying to say to the public is that fire grows rapidly, more rapidly than they can react to it. But sometimes when we spout these things off, and I've got some very experienced guys that I've worked with, and I go out and I listen to them, and they'll say something like that, and I just wonder. So the question is, the civilian will never catch you, but does what you say matter to another firefighter that might be listening? Jim, what are your thoughts? Right? Do we have a responsibility to portray ourselves to professionals, even internally, as professionals, even internally rather than externally to the public? What are your thoughts?
Well, absolutely, Chief. It begins internally if it's going to translate to the public. And with regard to the specifics of the information we give, the key thing you already touched on is fires are growing faster today than any time in history. But that being said, it goes back to the way in which it's presented. Is it a cocky, arrogant way, or is it a public education tool that you're going to use?
Right. What's the purpose of the statement? Yeah, I think that's
doing at a fire prevention day or something like that. You could be doing a live fire demo, and somebody who's never had a fire or never seen a fire up close, you can, a hands-on thing that you're exhibiting to them fire behavior, and you're showing them exactly what happens. And you may think you have a little fire and you got plenty of time. You can go get your picture of grandma, and you can go get your dog and whatever else like that. By the time you turn your back, this thing's, it's going good. You got to get out.
Right, absolutely. And here's a comment. Thank you, Lane, for being with us. Sure, I heard it doubles every 90 seconds. According to who? 40% of all statistics are made up. Yeah, probably even that one there, right? Even that 40% one might be. Thank you, Lane, for jumping in. But yeah, we've heard all of these kinds of things, and then often we go out there and we repeat some of these things. And I guess what I would just tell folks that are listening is that I don't. It doesn't matter to me. I have no dog in the fight if you repeat those statistics, but just use caution when you're repeating something that you're embellishing a little bit, because the last thing somebody in the audience does, that maybe there's somebody out there that knows the subject matter, and now your credibility happens to be shot because maybe you stretched a story just a little bit. Maybe you stretched it. So I don't know. Does that hurt us down the road? Can that? I always. If I'm telling somebody a story, I'm going to understate it. and let somebody in the audience say, you know, Chief, it isn't 4, it's 8. Well, they've corrected me, but I understated what I said, and they realized that it's greater than that. So just a word of caution to folks when they go out there and they say these things. What you say around the firehouse table is one thing, but as we begin to do that, I think that we can get ourselves in trouble if we're not managing our propaganda, if you will, particularly in this day of social media. What else have you heard around the firehouse or seen on the side of a fire truck or something that caught your attention, positive or negative? Anybody? Charlie, what do you got? Anything? You've been kicking around a while. Anything you heard or you seen?
I think one of the better ones I saw was on the side of an engine company. It said, "Smoke detectors never sleep."
Oh, that's a good one.
That's a message that never gets old, and a message we need to continue to get out to the public, and that's something that can never be overstated. The importance of early detection, especially with young people and the elderly. Something that Rob said a second ago. I just want to jump back to. We talk about it's a great picture, Kevin. Anybody hear me?
Yeah, we got you, Charlie.
Oh, all right. Yeah, I just had a picture of a very handsome picture of Kevin Burns pop up and take up my entire screen. Nicely done. There it is again. But anyway, we talk about how we are portrayed by the public and the image that we want to bring forward. If it wasn't Rob, please forgive me, Rob. It's the guy that doesn't act like he's important, or the guy that doesn't act as important as he really is. Those are the ones that impress me. We can all make ourselves bigger than life, and I hope we don't. I don't see anybody on this panel that would. But we've all known them. They fought every fire there ever was, put them out all by themselves, and if it wasn't for them, the whole town would burn down, as they say. I think it's how we act rather than how we put. Excuse me. I think it's what we don't do. Sometimes that makes us more professional.
Yeah, I think some of the best firefighters I've ever talked to in my life, I've been told something about them from another person who says, didn't so and so say this to you? Didn't you know about this? And it's the guy who is so humble, who has never said anything about what he's done. That really does impress you. So I like that one. Side of the apparatus, smoke detectors never sleep. I like it. What else? What else have we seen that's clever, catchy, a cliche, something that caught your eye in a positive or a negative way? Anybody?
I've seen on the back of engine, 2 things come to mind. I've seen it 2 different ones. If you could read this, then you must be second due. And then the other one was the old first in, last out.
Say that one again, Rob. You cut out for a second. First in,
last out.
First in, last out. So let's talk about that for a second. So if you can read this, you're second due, which I think, quite frankly, is sort of funny in a lot of ways. I think that's a great pride thing, certainly. But what's the downside to that? Is there a flip side to that might be a little negative? I think it's a positive, and
it's a good morale thing. I think 90%. I mean, if you saw it, or any of the guys on the panel saw it driving behind it, you'd know what it was immediately.
Right. Right.
Mrs. Smith driving behind this truck and down the street's probably saying, "What the hell are these guys talking about?" She has no clue.
Right.
But it is a good morale builder, I think.
Absolutely, I like it without question. But I think, what is there a downside in the fact that do we crank it up a little bit to make sure we are first due? Do we drive a little bit quick? Do we make sure that?
I guess, and you always have to live up to that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think
you happen to be the only engine in the district. I mean, you got an easy bar.
Absolutely. But any other one, first in, last out, is what does that speak to? I mean, that speaks to hard work. You're the first one there. You're the last one to leave. I mean, that's just the way our business is. Someday somebody's going to figure out a way to relieve those crews earlier, but it's just not done normally. So that's a good one. I like that on the apparatus. Let me ask you this. What about when the apparatus has the class of your fire department on it? We see that a lot. What does that do for you as a firefighter when you see it, or what does that do for? We see a couple things on trucks. We see class 1, class 2, whatever it is, class 3. Generally, nobody's putting class 9 on their trucks, but when we see that on the apparatus, and then the other thing is. Nationally accredited department. We see that on the apparatus. What do you see when you see that? What do you think as a firefighter? What are you thinking about, Jim? What do you think about that?
I actually like it, Chief. I think it makes a statement on the department and the direction they're heading. Obviously, if they're a 2, they're shooting for a 1. So I think it's a good thing. Yep.
Okay. Kevin, any thoughts on that? Is it a good thing, bad thing, or you're indifferent to it?
No, I think it's a good thing, Pete. I will make one comment that opened my eyes after the Charleston fire. They were a Class 1 fire department, and not to sound disrespectful, but how did that work out for them? So I think maybe it needs to be taken with a little bit of a grain of salt, but in the right way, I think it's a wonderful thing to have that pride.
Yeah, it certainly is an achievement. There's no question. There's a lot of work that has been done to get it that way and make it an achievement. How about a T-shirt? Favorite T-shirt you've seen walking around? Something that you was on the back of a T-shirt that made you smile, made you chuckle, anything like that?
I've got one, Pete.
Yeah, go ahead.
A T-shirt that had on the front, it just had like a generic Maltese cross on the back. It showed a picture of an old-time firefighter with a cigar hanging out of his mouth and a hose nozzle slung over his shoulder, and the caption at the bottom was, "The older I get, the better I was."
Yeah, isn't that the truth, right? The older I get, the better I was. I've suffered from that, I'm sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. So that's another good one. What else? Anything else you got?
Pete, I got one. I think you and I might have been together listening to this once, but someone put their aerial stick in the air, and it said, "We're nobody." And boy, you scratch your head. What does that mean? Well, the house down the end of the road said, "We're second to nobody." That was their motto. So that was kind of an internal thing, but boy, that made me chuckle when I heard that.
Yeah, that was actually a New York City thing. That one of the aerials said nobody, and everybody couldn't figure out why they would demean themselves that way. And the company down the road actually said nobody does it better, and so it was shame on you. We faked you out on that one. So I think that's a good internal pride. Certainly a good one. What else? Anything else you got? Anything else?
Pete, I got one here, and I know it's said quite frequently. We had a really good job. Or, we had a really good fire. And telling that to the civilian, what do they think? They enjoyed having a fire in my house, So I think that comes down to who you're actually saying it to.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. What we say internally at the kitchen table could clearly be mistaken if it were said out in the public air, certainly, because in fact, we talked last week a little bit about the documentary that just came out called A Good Job, right? And so is he speaking about the fire job being a good job, or is he speaking about a good job? And you could really, that's a double entendre. You could take that one both ways, certainly. Joe, you want to chime in? You got anything that you got a pet peeve or something?
No, I kind of ditto what I heard. I just posted in the chat. I think you have to have the discussion with your teams about what trade talk is, what like paramedics do, and then what customer talk is. When you hit the street, you have to be very careful what your metaphors or similes or your pride statements are. You have to really take care with those things because they don't always. Their tragedy is not your highlight of your day. It shouldn't be. The fact that you're helping them in their tragedy is what we have to teach as the highlight of the day. So,
Yeah,
nothing major about that.
No, I think that's important. So trade talk being inside the house and customer talk being outside the house certainly could make a difference. What about when we talked about this a little bit on one of the podcast episodes? After a significant fire, I believe we have a teachable moment. I believe there is time where the public will pay attention because there has been a significant fire. When does that cross the line? When do the firefighters take that event and, I don't know what the word is, capitalize on it? I think you want to use the teachable moment, but is there any risk in going beyond that at any point? And how far can you go or should you go with that? Anybody want to tackle that one?
Pete, I'll just make a quick comment on that. I think that you're going in a little bit different direction, but I'll just throw this out there. Sort of what Ethan said about helping people. We got to be real careful when we get a good fire that we're not high-fiving out on the front of somebody's lawn, where they've lost maybe everything, and we're slapping each other on the back because it was a good job. Everybody's got a camera nowadays, and boy, that stuff gets posted on the internet, and that's forever. So we really have to be careful. It's a different world, and we have to be careful, especially when we're out in the public like that.
No, I agree. And, I talked about a couple of things on T-shirts or what have you. It's very tough in the volunteer service, but even in the career service, I mean, guys wear their T-shirts or their job shirts, or, if you see somebody with a Reuben sweatshirt on, you know what he's doing. You know he's a fireman. You know he's on the job somewhere, volunteer or career. And as we go out in the public eye, the things we say, and that was my reason for tonight, sometimes the things we say in public can bite us, and particularly, Kevin, we're talking about, so everybody says the camera, right, which is the still shot. Don't underestimate the video shot that has audio with it at the same time, right? They can hear you as well as see you. So it certainly is a lesson as we move out. And my point was these, some of the things that we say. I mean, I've seen chiefs get in trouble for comments they've made after a fire. If we'd have had 3 more trucks and 2 more guys, City Hall be damned, we should have had more help, and it's the city's fault. Well, when you're emotionally charged and you say that at the scene of a fire, that probably is going to come back and beat you up a little bit. So I think it's all of those things, but certainly the fact that everybody has a cell phone and video capability and audio recording, I think that's critical to us for sure. What else? Anybody got something else? Anybody got something else? You guys are a quiet night tonight. Quiet night. What are you thinking?
One of the
Pete,
go ahead.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Pete, I was just going to just something quick. It's not an exciting thing, but on our apparatus it says dedicated to excellence in public service, and again, trying to teach the young guys that that's what we're all about, the fire service, and we exist to help people, we exist to solve problems. And that's a good thing to try to keep in the back of our minds and the front of our minds, especially on those you know, calls that aren't that exciting. That you know, that it could be. You know, sometimes we say, you know, your worst day is our best day. You know, it could be the biggest event in someone's life. Maybe someone's passing away, etc. And just to keep that idea of service in mind is a big key.
Yeah, I swore that I was going to have T-shirts made up that said "Put the service back in fire service." I agree with you, Kevin. I think some of that has been lost a little bit. It's not our convenience. It's not our. It's a privilege to have this job, whether it be paid or volunteer, and serve the community. And I think that the service piece has to come back. Joe, you were just going to dive in. Jump in there.
Yeah, well, a couple things. One is in volunteers we always have front license plate in North Carolina. We have a tag. It's usually our volunteer tag. And one of the things we had at Sandy Ridge was the slogan on the bottom was "Neighbors helping neighbors professionally." That was on the bottom of the tag. But the tag can say anything. You have to be careful what the tag does for you.
Yeah, no, that's a great one. Neighbors helping neighbors. Is that what it said, Joe?
Yeah, neighbors helping neighbors professionally.
Yeah, I just think, you know, that's a home run. That's a home run unless it's on the front of a pickup truck with a loud exhaust doing 70. You know, it's a win. I know of a department actually now who has just had a driving incident where the person's route of travel to get to the station goes by, you know, somebody's house, and it's becoming an issue, right? Where is that guy going? And he's driving too fast, and what have you. And it's not new. It's not new to us. Certainly, it can happen. But you know, if everybody's doing the right thing, boy, I'll tell you, that's a heck of a motto. I like that. I like that a lot. Jim, what are you thinking?
Well, I'm thinking that, you know, common sense ain't common. There are some terrific logos and slogans. I like what Chief Starnes has on the front of their vehicles, but it's difficult to have everyone on board with that. And we have to be a self-policing agency. And that's probably the best thing I can say. And then also there are some good positive things that we can put out internally, more so with regard to training. But I had an old fire chief that almost every memo started with, "When you're green, you grow. When you're ripe, you rot." And it was about learning and teaching and staying ahead of the game all the time. So, but that being said, I think we have to try to instill common sense in folks.
Yeah, common sense, and you know, it's the age-old, what is it, actions speak louder than words. It doesn't really matter what's on your shirt. It's how you're behaving and how you're acting. Let's drag in John Dixon. Great to have you here, John. If you're listening, great. Sorry you joined in late. That's okay. We want a note next time, John. Just make sure we get a note. But the one cliche he struggles with is put the wet stuff on the red stuff, right? And so, you know, that's been around for a long time, and we all have these cliches. Does that one strike anybody awkward or wrong? Or I've seen that one a number of times. That's pretty common. I think that's a good one. That's the same kind of cliche we're talking about, John, for sure. Does that strike anybody differently or anything? I mean, there are some off-color ones that I'm not going to get into that are a variation of that certainly should not be on shirts. Let me ask you this one, since we're talking about the T-shirts and the stickers and the morale patches. What's with the skull and crossbones? What's with the skeleton head with the fire coming out of the eyes and the whatever? I mean, is that I don't know. Is that a good thing, Charlie? You've seen those. I know of actually some department patches that actually look like that, quite frankly.
What I've seen, Pete, and I don't know if the panelists will agree or not, but pardon my grammatical fracture here, but the ones that brags the most does the least. If you have to advertise what you're doing or what you think you're doing, you're probably not doing it very well. I would prefer to, I have sweatshirts and job shirts and uniform shirts and T-shirts and everything else from where I work. And I really, and it's not a matter of pride, because I'm extremely proud of what we do, emphasis on the word we. I am extremely proud of what we all do. I'm proud of you for doing what you're doing, and I'm proud. I'm proud of what we do every day. I don't feel the need to go out and advertise that to everybody. I drive to work in my uniform. I certainly ran a red light, and the officer was very professional, and I apologized for running the light, and he jokingly said, "Where are you going, to a fire?" I said, "Oh, I don't know yet. But I'll know when I get there." And he let me off with a wink and a nod, and I thought he was a great guy for doing that. But the point is, I don't feel the need to. If I'm not going to work or coming from work, I don't really feel the need to wear my work clothes. I mean, if I'm out in the backyard with a chainsaw taking some limbs off the trees, I may have a sweatshirt on, but I mean, I don't go out on a Saturday night with my wife to dinner wearing my fire department garb.
Right.
And that to me is a real turnoff. And believe me when I tell you, I take a great deal of pride in what we do, and I certainly do love the job. I always will. But there's just something about that that's just a turnoff.
Yeah, I think it may be different, Charlie.
Anybody else feel that way, or is it just me?
I'm exactly the same way. I have as much pride in what I do as anybody else that you'll ever see, but I very rarely wear a fire department shirt or anything out like that. If I'm going to the firehouse, if I'm going to a drill, that's one thing. If I'm going to a meeting, that's one thing. But, if I'm going out for the night, especially to like a restaurant or something like that, I'm incognito.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, I think it varies. If you're in the volunteer service, there's a great deal of pride. I mean, Rob, you're a volunteer as well. But some folks, we've all heard this in the term of dealing with groups. There are people that join your organization that have that social need and want that emblem of belonging, and to them that is a source of pride that may be different from the way we are. It doesn't really disturb me as long as you. I think it's great if you're wearing a Maltese and somebody's out wearing a Maltese. I'll always take a second look and figure it out and size them up in my own little world professionally or what have you, and take a look and maybe say hello or what have you. But I think if you're behaving poorly while wearing that Maltese, I think that's where the risk comes in. Want to jump in?
I don't know where I have the audio, but you can take an old shirt, a rag, and you can have it well ironed and and be neat and say something. You can take a really new shirt and have oil stains on it and a rag and wear it out, and you can give another impression. I think the whole brand discussion has to be had at the fire station, no matter who you are. You have to have that discussion about who are we and what do we represent. The other thing that I wanted to say is a lot of people have a lot of slogans about being good and great. Most people don't have any data that says they can do anything well.
Yeah, we got a great. That's a
Joe.
All right,
yeah.
Sums it all pretty good right there.
That's.
I wish I'd have said that.
No, I mean, that's great, right? The slogan is half the battle, and your performance is another one, and your data to back that up is even a third level of that. So, well said, Joe. I'm glad your audio held for that one. That's for sure. There's no question. Let's see. John's with us. John's chimed in here. John Dixon says, when you're good at something, you tell everyone. When you're great at something, they'll tell you. Quote by Walter Payton. Bottom line is stay humble. It's okay to have great pride, but do so with respect. Very, very well said, John. We covered the humility piece earlier, but certainly a great ad. Thanks for diving in there, John. I appreciate it. When you're good at something, you tell everyone. When you're great at something, they will tell you. Good quote. I'll write that one down.
Hey, Pete, I'm going to bounce. Sorry to be abrupt, but it looks like we're getting a job.
All right. Listen, be safe. And then we'll reschedule what we were going to do later tonight.
You got it. I'll text you when I get back. If it's nonsense, I'll be back in a few minutes.
All right, take care.
All right, thanks, guys. Good night.
So that's the benefits of doing something live, right? One of our brothers is out going to work to do something right now, so that's good stuff. Good stuff. Anything else? What else we got? We got anything? Anything else we want to talk about tonight? Cliches, propaganda.
One of the things you were talking about a while ago, Chief Lamb, was what we take advantage of fires are not our tragedies, or how we work that into a positive effect in our community. Some departments I know will hang smoke detector awareness forums after a house fire in a community, and they'll say some nice things about sorry for their loss. Hope try to be aware of your neighbors, and then they'll at the bottom of that they'll put the smoke detector challenge in there, including the department coming by and hanging their detector for them.
Yeah, no, I absolutely. I think, but I would just say to you, and I had one negative experience in a lot of these years. No, that's a lie. I had horrible experiences over these years, but I one that sticks in my mind where the department was actually accused of going too far because of a fatal fire, or doing some training or so on and so forth, and I became aware of that. And it was sometimes the public, and again, we talked about in previous panels, we've talked about, what's your relationship within your community, and I think that depends on what level of things you can do. But I do think that the serious incident is a teachable moment. There's no question that I think that you have to do something, but there is a line that I think we should all be cognizant of, because I think it may not be perceived. It puts the department trying to capitalize on a tragedy, and that's not any place that the fire department needs to be, certainly. The one I asked, and we didn't get a lot of feedback on, what about these kind of the fire department T-shirts or the patches with this skull and crossbones and kind of an evil-looking thing? I mean, you all of you on the panel, I'm looking at all of you. Every one of you has seen these. What image does that portray to the public? What do you think? Does that really portray that I'm a tough guy, or does it say something else? Jim, what are you thinking?
Chief, I've seen it. Fortunately, rarely. I don't like it. I'm offended by it, and I would certainly put a stop to it. And it goes back to any type of T-shirt that we wear, regardless whether it's skull and crossbones or what have you. When you put yourself in the limelight, you better be ready for the microscope. And we just need to teach our people that. But I wouldn't tolerate it on my department.
Yeah, no, I think it's a scary emblem. I mean, I get it. I get what, it's like the special forces and all that stuff. It's the macho image, and it's telling you that you're a tough guy, certainly. But I think when you're talking about the impact it has on children, or the impact that it has on other members of the community, it may not be perceived exactly the way we want it to be perceived, I think. Anything else?
I'm sure Chief Starnes can give us some more insight on that one. The last one, he knocked it out of the park. Let's see if he can do it again.
I don't think so, Chief. I think you've overestimated your. I think you need to bet on 8 black, personally. But you
gotta love the guy.
The other piece of it is skull and crossbones. You have to be careful on trade patches, as you'll see a lot of engines and ladder companies insignias they create, and their placement and their context is important. The other piece of that is things that represent death. A lot of times we go after courage and fear and how close we work to those edges of mortality. And I think anytime you have that discussion and you cross the trade line into the customer line, you're asking for trouble. And I'm not there. I think you have to. I think every conversation of anything that the customer sees needs to be. You need to evaluate that and says the customer is going to see it. what impact is that going to have? I think you got to have that conversation. It don't matter what it is, whether it's gear, whether it's firefighter gear, whether it's old trucks, new engines, whatever it is. I think you've got to get out there and you've got to, before you leave the station. That's why we watch them. Is that very reason? We didn't. If dirty fire trucks worked, we wouldn't wash them. I think that's the problem. I think when we talk about we get in trouble anytime that we use death, dying, or courage or fear as an insignia in our trade. I think it's dangerous.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's strong words, but you're right. There is an attraction to that, and it's too bad Frank's not here. Last week, for those of you who were not here, Frank Blackley just kind of made reference to the comment, and it sort of triggered me for this week. And he was actually talking about in his department, they're actually having a discussion about branding. What is the department's message? What is the department's brand? Much like a business would do for advertising. You know, businesses paint signs on the side of their trucks because it's advertising. And what we do in our vehicles, and as Joe said, the cleanliness or whatever, but our patch, our uniform is advertising. All of those things make a difference. And I think that that it is important for the public, certainly, without question. What else as we begin to wrap it up? Any things, any last comments as we begin to wrap it up? Charlie, what are you thinking about this discussion about it's a little bit of bravado, a little bit about T-shirts, a little bit about branding. What do you think the takeaway is for folks that are going to watch this film?
I think it's all right to have a little bit of swagger. I don't have a problem with that. It's when, again, when you go over that line, and you know that line does have to be drawn. I don't know if it was Chief Murphy or if it was Joe Starnes that said it, but there's a line you can't cross with that swagger, and it's all right. You need to limit your self-confidence. Because that's when you begin to get in trouble. I don't have a problem with the individual companies and their individual logos and everything else. I think that's a good thing. I think it's good for morale. I think it's good for the station. It's good for the house. It's when the swagger becomes, you know, when you begin to develop these so-called superiority complex that you and others are turned off by it.
Yeah, I think you're right. We will not engage in this story on the air, Charlie, but you and I have a story about the superiority. I know exactly what you were saying when you were thinking about that.
Yes, we do.
We will leave that one off. Ethan, what are you thinking about as we begin to summarize here?
Well, definitely, like Charlie said, the patches, the stickers, the logos, it's all a pride thing, as long as it's not offensive.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, it's the offensive is you know, in whose eyes, right? In the chief's eyes, in the public's eyes. You really got to figure out and get a handle on that, on who determines what's offensive. Chief, what are you thinking as we summarize here and get ready to close out for the evening? Jim.
Oh, I agree with Ethan and certainly what Chief Starnes had to say. I didn't participate in the branding show last week, but it's kind of ironic because that's exactly what we're doing, going beyond our mission statement. Okay, identifying what our mission statement means, then is how does that translate to communications to both internally and the public at large.
Yeah, I think that's a good aim, and it's not going to happen overnight. For the folks that are listening to this, that won't occur overnight. It takes you a while to build that and get that message out. Joe, what's the summary for folks that are listening?
Well, I think Alan Brunestini said it best: prevent harm, survive, and be nice. You can encapsulate a whole conversation around that. We had at Santa Ridge, we had on our trucks and a small tag, we had to live in a community without harm. And anytime we cause harm, we're anti-mission. Anytime anytime we prevent harm, we have to look at what we do and say, are we preventing harm? Are we causing everybody to survive, including ourselves? And are we being nice? And I think that does it for me.
Yeah, that's pretty succinct, and I've actually been to programs where Chief Bernasini was saying that, and he says it, and then there's kind of like this silence in the room, and it's so simple you don't have to expand on it. It's pretty easy. Kevin, what are your thoughts as we begin to summarize tonight?
Well, Pete, I think everything's said. I would like to just pick up on something that Chief Hall said about the fact that we work as a team. I always made note of the fact that there's no superstars in the fire service, in my opinion. There's no Firefighters Hall of Fame. So we work as a team. And I'll throw a local expression that was taught to me by an old-timer. He used to say, "Hey, kid, we're not boxing oranges here." And his point was that it's a dangerous job. Respect it. Train so that you'll be ready when that time comes. So that's been something I've always tried to remember.
Yeah, it's knowing what the job is, and it's not what you want to create out of the job. It's what the job is when you joined. It's what the job is and what the public expects. It's about expectations a lot. It is, I teach a program and I talk about expectations, and it's, what do you think the chief expects? What do you think your captain expects? And what do you think the lady down the street expects? And as we begin to train people and get their expectations in line with others, if firefighters can come to work and say, I expect a quiet night tonight. I expect a quiet shift. Well, your expectation may not be meeting what everybody else is. And I think when there's a crash of expectations, I think sometimes that can lead to trouble as well. Let's just hear from Johnny. Johnny, thanks for joining us tonight. I appreciate it. Yeah, the biggest take is actions do speak louder than words. Don't tell me what you are or what you can do. Show me. And I think that sometimes when I personally find some of these things that I see amusing. When you see the folks that are wearing these shirts or brandishing these patches, if you will, sometimes you go to a fire show and you take a look around and you go, you just want to shake somebody by the shoulders and say, are you kidding me? Did you look at this before you did it, or what are you really thinking? So I think that's where we'll leave it. I think it was a good discussion. Again, it talks about branding. It talks about how we behave in the public eye. It talks about all of the things and the messages we have, and I think that's important. I think it's good stuff. So we will see you here next week. No, that's a misnomer. Sorry about that. We will not be here on September 28th. There will be no session on September 28th, which is next Sunday. I'm actually away and traveling, so I'll be on the road traveling. So there will be no session next week, and we'll be back in the first weekend in October. So that's it for us for tonight for Firefighting Today, the weekly roundtable discussion. We'll see you soon.